In the Chinese calendar, which repeats its cycle every 12 years, 1974 appears as a year of the tiger, a most appropriate designation for the Bengal Tigers of Idaho State University, as they captured their first Big Sky Conference championship and advanced to the first round of the NCAA National Basketball Tournament. Completing a 21-8 season, climaxed by a hostile court playoff win over the University of Montana, Idaho State's Bengals posted their best record in 14 years and had won the right to meet the New Mexico Lobos, champions of the Western Athletic Conference, in the NCAA first round, March 9th in the ISU Minidome. Despite the home court advantage, ISU was the underdog to the nationally ranked Lobos. A quick 25-18 ISU lead pleased the 9,400 partisan fans, but the Bengals suffered severe cold spells near the end of each half, and New Mexico pulled away to win by 8 points, 73-65. The disciplined Lobos harassed ISU with changing defenses, but Bengal guard Kevin Hoyt beat the pressure to score 14 points and become player of the game. Other ISU standouts were forwards Leroy Gibbons and Jim Anderson, and centers Dan Spindler and Steve Hayes. Even in defeat, the Bengals continued to display the kind of team balance that had carried them through the regular season to their first conference championship in 1974, the year of the Tiger. Along the path to the championship that had narrowly eluded him in 1973, Coach Jim Killingsworth used his 25 years of experience to guide his Bengals to 2 wins over Montana State University. The first, this 65-56 victory in the Minidome, and later a 75-72 cliffhanger in Bozeman, where Killingsworth's mastery of the delicate art of substitution was evident as he used veteran forwards Leroy Gibbons and Paul Dose strategically to spark the Bengals to a sweep of the Bobcats. When Killingsworth and the Bengals beat the Montana Grizzlies January 4th in ISU's first home conference game, no one could foresee that the Big Sky Championship would be decided in a playoff game between these two teams. Led by Jim Anderson with 15 points, 18 rebounds, and 5 assists, ISU downed Montana 66-52 in this Minidome contest. But the Grizzlies got revenge on February 22nd in Missoula as they trounced the Bengals 73-58. And when both teams made it through the rest of the season unbeaten, it looked like the conference would have co-champions for the first time in its basketball history. Killingsworth and his team traveled again to Missoula on March 5th, thinking they had a co-championship wrapped up and were playing again only to determine who would represent the Big Sky in the NCAA tournament. But a last-minute ruling by Conference Commissioner John Ronning sent a tight-lipped bunch of Bengals on to the Grizzlies' court. And it was the gangly freshman from Aberdeen, Idaho, Steve Hayes, who pulled ISU through the playoff. Hayes had 19 points and 13 rebounds to lead both teams. A late first-half rally gave ISU an 11-point halftime lead. Montana came back with a full-court press and cut the margin to a single point, but never took the lead. And the Bengals went on to win by 3, 60-57. The commissioner's decision to make the game a championship contest had been made at the urging of Montana's coach, who apparently felt the site advantage and his unbeaten record at home would ensure a victory. But the gamble backfired, and when the buzzer sounded, Idaho State had sole possession of the conference crown and the tournament berth. One of the most impressive wins in the year of the Tiger was a non-conference trouncing of the run-and-gun Vikings of Portland State University. The Bengals walloped Portland 112-77, the season high point mark, and also set a school assist record with 33. Guard George Rodriguez was the individual standout with 10 assists and 12 points, while Jim Anderson led 6 Bengals into double figures with 25. The Bengals also topped the 100-point mark against tough Illinois State, as Dan Spindler held 7-foot Ron DeVries scoreless and tallied 25 himself to lead the way to a 107-80 victory. And ISU dumped another top independent, Utah State, 82-78, with both Anderson and Spindler on the injury list. Idaho State's natural basketball rival is Weber State College, and in 1974 the Bengals hooked up in 2 dandy contests with their neighbors from Ogden, Utah. In a rare reversal of the home court advantage, Idaho State took an overtime win in Ogden, 71-67, and the Wildcats captured a cliffhanger in the Bengals' den, 66-64. Weber State had won 6 consecutive Big Sky titles and was favored to make it 7 when ISU invaded Wildcat Gym on January 10th, bouncing back from a 15-point deficit to win. Anderson and Spindler scored in double figures, but freshmen Steve Hayes and Dennis Green made big contributions in overtime. It was the same script with a different ending in Pocatello 2 weeks later. ISU handed Weber a 20-point lead in the second half, then tried to take it away with a late cavalry charge. Kevin Hoyt led the way and ISU tied the score with seconds left. But a defensive lapse left Jimmy Watts loose under ISU's hoop, and he hit a lay-in to hand the Bengals one of their rare home court losses. Idaho State usually finds a way to beat Gonzaga at Spokane, and in 1974 the Bengals pulled out a close one, 67-64, again coming from behind. The last-minute win was a trademark of this Bengal team. Mostly they won the close ones against Weber State in Ogden, Montana in the playoff, Gonzaga at Spokane, Wyoming at Laramie, and Montana State in Bozeman. But sometimes they lost in the same fashion. Brigham Young by 1 point in Provo, Weber by 2 in the Mini-Dome, Loyola by 2 in Los Angeles. In Spokane, ISU trailed Gonzaga by 6 with 3 minutes to play until Jim Anderson took over. The hot-shooting all-conference forward had 24 points, including a forced 25-footer that put the winning points on the scoreboard. The next meeting between the two schools was not nearly so dramatic. Idaho State overwhelmed the Bulldogs in Pocatello 77-55, with an even dozen Bengal players breaking into the scoring column. Typical of ISU's balanced scoring attack, Kevin Hoyt was the only double-figure Bengal with 19. Killingsworth's team showed some Jekyll and Hyde characteristics against the University of Idaho as they split for the season with their sister university from the north. In Moscow, the Vandals had only 5 turnovers as they rolled to an 89-75 win. Only Steve Hayes was a consistent Bengal scorer with 20 points. Idaho hit 50% from the field and attempted more free throws in the final 10 minutes than did the Bengals in the entire contest. That victory gave the Vandals the inside track at winning the King Spud Trophy, which annually goes to the team scoring the most points in the series between the two schools. Idaho held the edge exactly 1 week until the teams met again in Pocatello, where ISU demolished the Vandals 94-60. Again, a dozen Bengals scored, with Anderson's 18 topping the column. During the season, Idaho State played a variety of defenses ranging from a tight man-to-man to a swarming zone, under the tutelage of Killingsworth and his fine assistant coaches Jack Cleghorn and Gail Fillmore. The Bengals met Boise State 4 times, and the first 3 games were close. Spindler led ISU to a 73-65 victory in the Mini-Dome. Boise won 57-53 in Bronco Gym, and the Bengals came up with a crucial 75-67 decision in the 3rd game in Boise. The 4th game, back in Pocatello, was almost no contest. The Bengals rolled over the Broncos 86-66 in the must game ISU had to win to earn the playoff against Montana. The season is history now, and much of its excitement, its heartbreak, and its joy will gradually fade away, except in the memories of coaches Killingsworth, Cleghorn, and Fillmore, and this particular group of Bengal Tigers, whose year it certainly was in 1974.